Okay, we're going to start the cardiovascular system. So this is chapter 5 in your book. So let's turn the slide. Okay, so the cardiovascular system is made up of the heart and your blood vessels. So its job is to take nutrients to the cells and to remove waste from the cells. It's also going to take oxygen to the cells and take carbon dioxide away from the cells. So you need oxygen to make ATP. A byproduct of making ATP is carbon dioxide. So carbon dioxide builds up and you need to exhale it. Most of the nutrients come from what we eat, so the digestive system is part of it. The kidneys are going to help us get rid of waste. There's also this thing called the lymphatic system, which is going to help us with water balance and making sure that fluid returns to our blood. So we'll talk about that more in a couple chapters. Okay, so the main functions that the book tells us of the cardiovascular system are to generate blood pressure. Okay, so if you have blood pressure, then your blood is moving through your body, which is a good thing. Okay, that's going to transport blood. So when we transport blood, that means we're going to have gas exchange, we're going to have nutrient exchange. So all this kind of fits together. The fourth thing is that we regulate blood flow. So if your tissue is really active, it needs more blood. So think about right now, so you're just sitting here studying and your legs aren't active. So we can restrict the flow of blood to your legs, but we'll increase the flow of blood to maybe your stomach because you're digesting your food and to your brain because you're thinking. Okay, and vice versa if you're walking up the steps in the science building. Okay, now the normal pathway of blood is something that you probably learned a long time ago. So we start at the heart, okay, and then we're going to go out arteries, okay, and arteries take blood away from the heart. Usually when we picture them arteries, we think of them as being red. Okay, and then arterioles are little arteries that you can't see with your naked bare eye. Okay, so you'd have to use a microscope. Capillaries, which is where gas exchange occurs, and then the blood leaves the capillaries, it goes back to the venules, and back to the veins, and then to the heart. So venules are little veins. Okay, so we're going to talk about these right now. So arteries and arterioles, so they all carry blood away from the heart. So I always remember arteries, arterioles start with an A, away starts with an A. Okay, they have 3 layers. Okay, so they have a thin epithelial layer, so that's what I made it yellow. It's not too thin. Okay, this red is supposed to be the blood. So this is a cross section through an artery. So if you took it and you just cut it, so this is where the blood would be. Then there's a layer of tissue right here that's the thin epithelium. Then there's this pink layer supposed to be the smooth muscle. So smooth muscle is remember that smooth muscle is under involuntary control. So it can constrict and relax to regulate blood flow. So if something's going on and we need to constrict it, okay, it's going to make this hole smaller. And if it dilates, it'll make it bigger. Okay, and then this outer layer is connective tissue. So now arterioles are just little arteries, and they're really going to help regulate your blood pressure. I'll show you a picture in a minute. Okay, now here. Okay, capillaries are these little teeny tiny vessels, so they're microscopic. I don't know how much this is magnified, it doesn't say, but this is under a microscope. So it's all this little network. So there's just miles and miles and miles of capillaries in your body. Capillaries are really thin. Okay, so the inside of them is very, very thin. So if you did the cross section again, it would only have this yellow layer on the outside of them. Okay, they wouldn't have all this. The reason capillaries are thin is because that's where gas exchange takes place. So there's going to be tissue around here, and the air is going to be able to, the oxygen and carbon dioxide will be able to move through the capillaries. So when it says made of 1 layer of epithelial tissue, that's the outside of them. So they're really thin, and the reason they're thin is for gases to go through easily. Okay, if you put all the arteries or all the capillaries together, there's a lot of them in your body. Okay, so that's what it means when we say combined large surface area. Okay, so if you looked at a vein, okay, so here's a vein, here's an artery, here's arteriole, a little one, there's a little venule, and then there's the capillary. Okay, if you look, this is a slide of both of them, and they kind of colorized it. They don't usually look all nice bright blue and bright red. But the artery is really nice and round because it's got that smooth muscle that kind of keeps it toned. A vein, though, the walls of it are thinner. So I always say veins are floppy. So veins can hold more blood. Okay, now, venules and veins are what's going to take blood back to the heart. Okay, venules are little veins. Okay, so they're going to take the blood from the capillaries, which that's what we just looked at here. Okay, see, this is a little venule. Okay, so the oxygenated blood's going to come into the artery. It'll go in the arteriole, go to the capillary. Gas exchange takes place. Okay, so we drop off the oxygen, we pick up carbon dioxide, and the blood just keeps moving through, and it goes to the venule, and then the vein, and then it's going to go back to your heart. Okay, so veins and venules have 3 layers. They have another thin epithelial layer. They don't have as much smooth muscle, though. They have a little bit, but it's not as much as an artery does. It says thick, smooth muscle layer, but there's less smooth muscle in a vein than there is in an artery. And then they have the connective tissue, and the connective tissue just kind of serves to anchor it in your body. Okay, now veins carry the blood towards your heart, so they're always carrying the blood back toward your heart. I don't have a trick for remembering that. Okay, now veins have to bring the blood back to your heart, and they're under a lot less pressure than an artery is. So they have this built-in mechanism. They have valves, and the valves are going to help the blood get back to the heart. So we'll talk about all that and try to explain that all to you. But veins have valves. Okay, so here's some differences. Arteries have really thick walls. They look very round. The blood, when it's in the arteries, is under high pressure because the heart, when it contracts, when it squeezes, it forces the blood out, and that blood goes to the arteries first, so it's under a lot of pressure. They're taking blood from the heart, so the arteries are always going away. Okay, veins, the walls of them are thin. Okay, they're very floppy. They actually hold most of the blood in your body at any one time, so they're big. Okay, they're under low pressure because the blood goes through the arteries, goes through the capillaries, and it really slows down. It's almost like floating down a river. So you're traveling in a river, you get off in a little tributary, and you go through a lake. So the lake slows you down, and then you get back on, and you've lost your momentum. Okay, so the veins are under low pressure. Okay, and they're going to take the blood back towards the heart. Veins also have valves. Capillaries don't have valves, or arteries don't have valves. Okay, now it seems like we're going quick, but now we're going to talk about the heart. And I think I'm going to stop here and then start the next one to talk about the heart.